Why
Every 2
Korea
years,
is
1
dying
million
out
Japanese
by
disappear.
Kurzgesagt. I think I pronounced that correctly. Please go subscribe, as if everyone already doesn't know him. First of all, by Korea, I'm assuming we're referring to South Korea, although I'm not really sure. It doesn't really specify. South Korea is obviously facing some pretty big demographic issues, as well as, of course, a lot of that region of the continent, Japan and China included. I just love the story of South Korea, though. 70 years ago, this was one of the poorest places on Earth after the Korean War. Now, it is literally one of the top economies on Earth.
China's
However, that
population
work
will
culture
halve
is
by the end of
pretty
the
rough.
century. The median age in Italy has reached 48.
Italy is a big
Or
one. I actually just visited Italy, and I was visiting some of the small towns. You can really see it. You can witness literally the demographic crisis with your own eyes.
In the world, birth rates are crashing. Is humanity dying out? What's going on?
South
and
Korea
how bad is it?
specifically is... I think we're talking about South Korea because they might be slightly ahead of the curve in terms of like, well, ahead of the curve sounds like it's a good thing. It's not a good thing. They might be a glimpse into the future of what could happen.
For hundreds of thousands of years, the human population barely grew at all, haunted by disease,
Until we
famine, and
exploded.
war, until the Industrial Revolution. Exponential progress led to
Again.
exponential growth, pushing our numbers
And it wasn't even that long ago where we thought overpopulation was going to be a huge issue. Some estimates thought we'd be at like 30 billion people on the planet by now.
to 6 billion in the year 1999 and 8 billion just 24 years later.
So yeah,
and
we're
our
at
numbers will
8
continue
billion.
to rise for at least another 60 years.
And that's important to know. We will continue to rise, but it's certain parts of the world, as I've talked about many times on this channel, and obviously lack thereof in other parts of the world, hence Korea.
But this growth obscures something. People kind of stopped having babies. For a
probably did
stable
not predict
population,
that
every couple needs
at
to have
all.
2 children on average. If the number is higher, it grows. If lower, it shrinks.
Anything
if it's
less
well
than,
below,
and no, this is not 1.5 child. They're not eating half their children. It took me a minute to realize that.
lot and quickly.
It's on average.
Like
I don't
in
know why I
South
had to
Korea,
add that.
one of the hottest exporters of pop culture.
K-pop.
Its fertility rate lay at 0.8 children per woman in
Wow,
2022.
that's not even
the
at
lowest
one.
in the
That is not, okay, that is the lowest in the world apparently. But there are countries that will probably get to that level one day.
world. This means 100 South Koreans of childbearing age today will have 40 kids, who then,
And
will
then
have 16 kids,
just
who then will
continues
have
to dip.
6. If nothing changes, then within 100 years, there will be 95
Maybe there'll be like this new trend to just like start having babies in like 2050 though. Who knows? I mean, we can't really like just assume that. I don't know why that would be like a worldwide thing. Everyone's just like, yo, having kids is cool.
percent fewer young people, and South Korea will see a population implosion. That is, if things stay the same. We have yet to
If
see if there's
things
a bottom to
stay
fertility rates.
The same, exactly.
Although looking at the bigger picture and absolute numbers, this population will not shrink that much. It
And
simply returns.
Again, we are focusing on South Korea, hence the thumbnail of this video. But you know what's funny? North Korea also, according to the numbers, isn't doing that much better. Although they have completely different reasons why their population is not growing. Let's not even get into that.
to the level it once was. In 1950, there were 20 million South Koreans. In 2023, there are 52 million, and by 2100,
Yeah.
there will be 24 million again.
And then their
But the
economy
issue is not that there will be
will
fewer
not be as
South
strong.
Koreans. The issue is the composition of the population. In 1950, the median
Yes.
age was
So
18.
here we go.
In 2023,
A lot more older
it's
people.
45. In 2100, it will be 59.
And at a certain point, those people won't be able to work. I think we've talked about this so many times.
Country of seniors. And South Korea is far from alone. China may be seeing the steepest population reversal in history, unstoppable
Yeah,
at
it's
this
hard
point.
to know what their
Rapid
numbers. It's
industrialization,
hard what they're actually
urbanization,
reporting.
and rising incomes meant that the Chinese started to prefer smaller families. That, plus the introduction
That's
of the
crazy. It's still so crazy to me that like not even that long ago, a couple decades ago, they had to limit the Chinese population from having babies. And now it's like the exact opposite. They're just like, please.
child policy, which aimed to slow population growth, means that China has
Exactly,
had a low
this is-
fertility rate for decades.
Yes.
With a fertility
Only
rate
like
of 1.16
40
births
years
per
ago.
woman, within 4 generations, 100 young Chinese will turn into 20.
I wonder if they're regretting that. Maybe they're not regretting those decisions because if it did continue to grow without that policy, maybe they would have lost control. It would have been complete anarchy. I don't know.
China's fertility rates are now one of the lowest in East Asia.
1.2.
Lower.
They're not too far behind South Korea. It's crazy that Japan is doing the best out of the big three, especially since the meme economy really loves to focus on this country in particular when it comes to the depopulation crisis.
Than even Japan's. In comparison, Europe's depopulation is much slower despite low fertility, since unlike Asia, most states have had a steady flow of immigrants. The impact is complex, as a good chunk of immigrants come from other low fertility rate areas. The number of immigrant women who do have a lot of children is not yet high enough to make a big dent, and fertility rates of immigrants tend to adjust.
Wait, is that... What flag is that? Is this supposed to be Italy or Mexico? Is that a cookie?
The native population within 2 to 3 generations.
Okay, that's got to be Italy. I'm thinking the Mario reference. Okay, I like the Easter eggs, Kurzgesagt.
In Eastern Europe, the decline has sped up even more because many young people have emigrated to stronger economies like Germany, whose median age is one of the highest in the world at 46. Latin America fell below replacement in 2015.
I'm actually surprised about that. I know that a lot of Latin American countries are not dealing with this, for example, Mexico.
In the US, immigration is the only thing keeping the population growing substantially.
Yeah, that we're just going to keep relying on that, basically. I think that's going to be a lot of countries' game plan.
Still places where fertility rates have not fallen below replacement yet. In much of the Middle East, North and Sub-Saharan Africa,
Africa's still doing
fertility
fine.
is...
Specifically Nigeria. Nigeria is going to be popping up in terms of population. It's going to pass up a lot of countries in the future. In 2020, this nation was ranked 7th, but projections are showing by 2100, Nigeria is going to be 3rd, the 3rd most populated country in the world.
High, which creates the same concerns about overpopulation
I love that we're focusing
as when
on
Asia
South
grew very
Korea about
quickly in
this
the 1950s.
subject, though. I guess South Korea is like the, how do I say this, golden child? That's definitely not the right term, but we're looking at them because apparently they have it the worst.
Turned out to be unfounded. But recently, the UN has reduced its forecast for Africa's population drastically. For Nigeria, estimates were lowered from 733 million to 546 million by 2100.
See, that's the thing. The further out you go in terms of the projections, the more likely it's going to be a little bit off.
Similar trends are being noted across the
maybe they won't become the 3rd most populated country. Although these Wikipedia numbers were accurate, 546. So they were initially projecting Nigeria to become the 2nd most populated, or somewhere around the 2nd. What the? Passing China?
As Africa develops, fertility rates are shrinking much faster than anticipated.
Yeah.
It's becoming more likely
that seems to be the
East
theme
Asia's
here.
story will repeat itself. By the end of the century, most places in Africa may be below replacement too.
That development's going a lot faster than we project, which means that actually population begins to decrease faster than we project too.
So declining birth rates and aging populations have become a general trend all over the world. Why is all of this a big deal? Demographics and poverty.
Yeah, the economy.
For a functioning
economics.
society, you need enough people in the prime of their lives. Young and middle-aged people do most of the work. In any economic system.
This is very interesting that Kurzgesagt decided to cover this topic, which I'm sure he's covered something similar, but I just find it interesting because I feel like we talk about this all the time. Maybe a lot of people don't realize this. Maybe a lot of people, normal people that aren't in the weeds like we are here.
People create a society's wealth. In retirement, you stop contributing as much to the economy.
So you need some younger people.
But the majority of healthcare costs are generated by seniors. The way the world worked in the past was that a lot of younger people took care of a few older people. Imagine a society where most...
And this is part of the reason why a lot of places are raising that retirement age. And that's probably just going to continue, and it's going to be a big issue.
People are older than
France
60.
did not like that
The
very
financial
much.
burden for the young will be immense, unsustainable, even for the richest countries. Even in the best case, this will mean people having to work way longer.
I mean, my only solution that I've ever really come up with is like technology, robotics. I'm not sure like exactly how that could help, but you know, with the lack of jobs, maybe automation is going, who knows? That might be a whole other can of worms.
Healthcare costs and poverty, while states with shrinking incomes struggle to keep up with rising costs. Technology might soften the blow, but can't compensate entirely.
Oh, okay, well there you go. I mean, I'm not claiming that it's going to compensate entirely, but can it help like soften the blow? Maybe.
11 out of 31 provinces
Especially
in China
if technology continues to like
deficits for their
exponentially
pension funds.
increase.
They got old before they got rich, and now they can't really catch up anymore. China's working age population is predicted to fall by 20%, or 200 million people by 2050.
See, and we need to really focus, when we're talking about demographics, it's really that working age percentage that we should really be discussing. Was it like 18 to 64, depending on when your retirement age is at, 65 for the US? Is it even still that? Oh, it depends on when you were born. I had no idea. Sometimes it's 67. See, here we go. It's just going to continue to creep on up.
Much as today's entire working age population of the US.
Working age population.
Infrastructure collapse is an almost universal constant of population decline. Because infrastructure works at scale and doesn't get cheaper to operate if it's used by fewer people.
If
population declines, be it because of urbanization or the loss of industry and employment, once people and their income disappear,
it's going to be literally like post-apocalyptic, like a zombie. I don't even want to imagine that.
Necessary to sustain infrastructure disappear too. You can see it in many depopulated towns and cities in East Germany.
This is what I said. In East Germany.
That suffered sharp population decline after German reunification.
You can also, like I said, I was just in Italy. You could see it in Italy.
Or look at Japan.
There's a whole...
You can tour the countryside to see dying towns.
But there's also, like, that it's hard to sometimes use that as an example. There are, of course, countries around the world that aren't facing depopulation that will still have dying towns. There's a lot of factors behind why that could be.
If there are fewer people, won't life get cheaper and better, and there'll be more resources to go around? Well, no. Population decline doesn't lead to prosperity. It's people's ideas and work that create our prosperity, not the mere availability of resources. Another danger for aging societies is that elected governments could decide to mostly represent the interests and fears of their elderly populations, potentially leading to short-term thinking and a preference for conserving wealth over innovation.
If like 50% of your country is over the age of like 50, then
That's not a society that can handle issues like climate change, which need massive investment and fresh ideas, something the world is already having a hard time with. Many people think that having fewer humans on Earth is actually a good thing because our societies are too unsustainable, we're using up too many resources, and because of climate change. The problem is that even if you want fewer humans, this process is very likely too slow to have a positive impact on the environment.
Oh man, this is crazy. Because I talk about this like maybe every week. I don't see a solution. I don't see how we gonna fix this. Like, I don't think people are just gonna randomly start having kids. This is probably just gonna be our future.
World population is going to grow for at least 60 more years before it may shrink again.
We need to hope for some crazy technology to pop up.
Likewise, any other upsides a lower population might have will most likely not materialize themselves this century.
Ooh.
So just like
most likely, keyword most likely.
The easiest solution seems to be immigration, but the fertility of immigrants adjusts to local levels within 3 generations.
Sometimes it's quicker than that, to be quite honest.
So you need a constant influx of new migrants, which is not sustainable long term as birth rates are dropping everywhere. The only way would be to keep poor countries poor so that the young and motivated migrate to developed countries looking for opportunity and a better life. Kind of an immoral thing to wish for. By the end of the century, Africa will have the highest number of young people in the world, and so African migrants might become the world's most sought-after immigrants, with elderly nations fighting hard for every person willing to make the move.
Literally going to be a race.
Immigration can also create societal or cultural tensions, which is a universal phenomenon in all cultures, especially when cultures with very different sets of values meet, often leading to a backlash that slows immigration down again. It's easy to be frustrated at this, but ignoring this will only divide societies, empower demagogues, and increase xenophobia. Economically, immigration is largely beneficial for societies, even if this seems counterintuitive to many people. Especially countries like the US, an immigrant nation built on the idea of personal freedom and opportunity through hard work.
That's the thing about the US, is that's just what we've been doing this whole time, basically.
Benefit the most. Countries like this will have a clear advantage this century, especially if they can attract the world's brightest and most ambitious.
Versus South Korea, who is not known for that. South Korea is not known for being like, oh yeah, come on, become South Korean. That actually just sounds like a crazy statement to me. Imagine if I became South Korean one day. Like, I'm laughing, but like, that's how I would love to be South Korean.
And our opinion.
But I probably
This topic is way too big, affects societies as diverse as literally all of humanity. So please take this part with a gigantic grain of salt. Obviously, we're looking at this from our Central European perspective. One way to look at falling birth rates is as a side effect of the world being...
I actually didn't even read that. I just knew that was a reference to this is fine with all the fire around.
...less bad than it was. Especially women are freer, more educated, and wealthier than in the past. But it turns out that if societies are better off, individuals often decide to have fewer kids. Interestingly, there's a gap between how many kids people want and how many they're having. The mean number of kids women in Europe want is around 2.3,
versus
much more
what they're
than they're actually having.
That is very interesting. Maybe that's good news. Like maybe if we could just find a way to get their desired number. I don't know how.
We gained a lot of freedoms in the last century across continents and economic systems. That came at a cost. The tight-knit communities and family structures that were part of our nature, where kids could be brought up by a village.
Oh,
Today,
man.
young parents have to deal with different challenges and societal expectations. Women
Social
are kind
media.
of ground down between the wish and expectation to have a
TikTok.
family and a career, being pressured to do both but not compromise either. Men are sharing parental duties more equally than they used to, but are often still expected to be the provider. And it's sadly true that usually at least one parent's career is held back. In many developed countries, the gender pay gap is chiefly a pay gap between mothers and everyone else. But it's not just outside pressure. Our culture of individualism probably plays a role too. We have only one life to...
That is interesting, especially because a lot of countries like Japan, South Korea aren't known for individualism. It's more of a community-based sort of thinking, and they're still facing a similar problem.
Explore, be free,
But
travel,
maybe it's different now.
fun, accomplish something, and try to be happy. So people commit to partners later in life and often decide against big families or any at all. And that's fair. Nobody owes their country babies.
Okay, now I feel like I'm being personally attacked. Chill, Kurzgesagt, chill.
So far, no country has successfully managed to increase birth rates significantly.
Is what I'm saying. We're not gonna be, I don't know.
As of now, we don't really know what works. But here are a few options to at least make the lives of parents much easier. Free and abundant access to childcare, financial benefits for parents, more and cheaper housing. Parenthood has to stop being a
Yes. I still feel like, yeah, that's big. That's gonna help.
career obstacle, and our culture needs to become more positive towards
I don't think that's
families.
gonna fix everything.
And that's something we can all work on. The next time you sit next to a crying baby, don't be a jerk about it. Kids are hard.
Dude, that's a good cut. Man, Kurzgesagt's going in this video. The moment I hear a crying baby, I'm like, nope, I don't want a kid. I'm not a jerk about it. It's just like, oh yeah, why would I want that?
In the end, humanity will not die out because we're having fewer babies. The age
not
and
gonna die
composition of
out.
our societies changes quickly, and we need
It's
to
just
deal with
gonna
that
change.
sooner rather than later. But in the end, of all the incredibly hard challenges we've faced before, why would this be the one we can't solve?
That would be crazy. Imagine this is the thing that brings us down. We just elect to stop having kids. Like, out of all the things we were able to beat, the Black Death, the Mongolian Empire, I don't know why I brought them up as an example. Yeah. Again, please go subscribe to Kurzgesagt. And big thanks to my patrons this month. Drew, I'm your dad, back with the milk. Look outside. KirinoIsBestGirl. The clone's training is complete and is
Fredrik
approaching.
Tibblin,
without
Australia
is real.
InquisitorXarius,
The great
Jack
JohnDenver,
Sebby,
if you hear this, I love you.
GoodOldRyah,
The Mexican 7
ortin,
Fat,
RyeThePie,
Carmel
LuxembourgLover.
Saida, and why am I doing this?